Hello, friends. Jamie Hepworth here to share a very special presentation with you today titled, I Don't Wanna. Have you ever heard your kids say that before? When they just don't want to do the thing that you're asking them to do or that you think is really important that they do? What do you do in situations like that? That's what this presentation is about today, is investigating this phrase, I don't wanna, with our kids. How can we be excellent parent mentors, mentors who really reach the hearts of our children? That's the topic of this lecture today. And as a homeschooling mother of 5 children, ages 2 to 11, I think I have some valuable things to share. I hope you'll enjoy this presentation today. So this is the outline of the things that I'm going to cover today. So you can go ahead and see, the 7 main points, but I'm going to share a really helpful tool that you can use again and again. I'm going to give you questions you can ask yourself as a parent mentor to make sure that it isn't some issue within yourself that's getting in the way of seeing your child correctly. We're going to talk a little bit about how to develop a stronger relationship with your child. We're going to talk about how you can cultivate a rich learning environment. I'm going to share some ideas about crafting family objectives and a vision that help to guide overall family culture. And I'm going to talk specifically about mentor meetings, which is a huge part of being able to mentor our children. And then at the end, there'll be a Q&A, which can happen in the comments section. So I'd love to hear your questions, your thoughts, your insights, and we'll talk about those things at the end of this presentation in the comments section. It's going to be great. So there are 3 questions that you can ask yourself again and again in relationship with your children or really anything that you do. And if you're asking yourself these 3 questions over and over again, you're going to be able to adopt growth as a way of being. These help you stay in growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. And those questions are, what worked? What could be improved? And what will I do next time? So I hope that if you get one thing from this presentation, you'll write those 3 questions down. What worked? What can be improved? And what will I do next time? Those are the questions that you can ask yourself about everything to really coach yourself towards progress in every situation. And so I hope that you'll do this. It's important that you have all 3 of these questions, and especially that you start with what worked. Sometimes we try to talk about all the things that went wrong first. No, we're not going to do that. We got to acknowledge ourselves first. Always, always, always acknowledge ourselves first. So asking that what worked question and, really taking some time to answer that thoughtfully and with love for yourself and for the people in the situation. What worked is very important. Then what could be improved? It's like, what are some of the aspects that didn't flow quite the way that I would have liked to, or, what could be even better? And then finally, what will I do next time as a result of thinking about what worked and what I would like to improve? These are questions you can ask yourself over and over again. And I hope you'll remember these forever because they're really great. Now, when we're trying to mentor our children, there are often a lot of situations that come up that could challenge the inner belief systems we have from within and make it hard to reach our children, And so I made a list of questions here that you can ask yourself to just check in with kind of your own inner mental and emotional state to make sure that what you're asking your child to do is appropriate and relevant. So here are some of the questions you can ask yourself. What am I currently learning that lights up my own heart? As a homeschooling mother, I utilize Thomas Jefferson education or leadership education principles in our home. That's one of the kind of foundational approaches that we use in our home. And one of the keys of great learning in Thomas Jefferson education is you, not them. And I firmly believe this. I believe a really important part of having kids that love to learn is seeing that their parents love to learn. And so if your kid is not wanting to learn how to play the piano, well, do you know how to play the piano? Do you practice it every day and love it and have a great time with it? A lot of people are trying so desperately to get their children to do stuff all the time. It's like, how do I get my kid to do this thing? It's like, does that matter to you? Do you actually do it? And if the answer is no, then why are you trying to force your child to do it? It obviously isn't important if you're not doing it. And so I hope that in creating a culture in your home that gets your kids engaged, that helps them to uh, really take initiative with their learning, that that is something that you're doing. Like, what are you reading? What projects are you working on? What contributions are you making to the world that are just so delightful and exciting to you? This is huge. Leading by example is the best way to be a ninja mentor. So be somebody who loves learning. This is going to be inspiring to your kids, I promise. Another question that you can ask yourself, and I think this is very important, is this goal developmentally appropriate for my child? A lot of times, for example, when we're trying to teach our children how to read, we try to push stuff way earlier than children are really developmentally even ready to be doing that. I mean, you can force a child to learn things through manipulation and contortion and lots of repetition and there's just ways that we manipulate our children into learning things when they're not actually developmentally ready for it. And so if your child's struggling learning to read, my personal non-professional opinion is that wait until they are about the age of 8 before you need to worry about if things aren't going smoothly. This is not something you need to hammer into your children. A lot of times, the reasons that we push our children to do things academically that they're not really ready for yet is that we have insecurities uh, about what other people will think of us or our children. It's like, what does the world think about me because of my child's ability to do X, Y, Z at this age? And so I would ask yourself that and be really honest. Is this goal developmentally appropriate for my child? If it's not, maybe just let it go or modify it some way. Another question you can ask yourself is my child capable of owning what I'm asking them to do? If you have to do all of the work for your child in order to be able to do this thing that you want them to do so that they can perform, I was like, well, maybe this is another question of developmentally appropriate, that we can take a look at and say, let's let this up. Let's see where kids are at and actually work with that. And that's, along the same lines. Am I doing anything for my children that they are capable of doing themselves? I am a big advocate of helping children be able to develop skills that are relevant. And the more that we allow our children to do things for themselves instead of doing things for them, the more confident they get. And uh, it, there's a sort of respect for themselves and for their place in the home when you're not doing things for them that they are capable of doing for themselves. What is the intention behind this goal is the next question. What do I mean by intention? It's kind of the spirit or the motivation, the drive. Sometimes we have a goal, like for example, that our children will be competent in some basic math skills or something like that. And we will say, it has to be that they learn math with this specific curriculum or this approach. And maybe that's not as important. Maybe it doesn't need to be a specific approach so much as it needs to be an intention. It's like, oh, well, I want them to not hate this. I want them to be good at this and to be capable in this. I want our relationship to still be in place at the end of this. It's like, oh yeah, there's lots of intentions that I have about this goal. When you look at the intentions behind things, you might be able to shift the way that it's expressing so that you can just be a little more flexible in responding to things. And similarly, this question, why is their accomplishing this goal or outcome important to me? What does their accomplishing this goal or this outcome mean about me? And is it about me in some way, or is this really about them? And I think, going back up to the top again, like, what am I currently learning that lights up my own heart? Let's make sure that we're in integrity here, and that the things that we're asking our children to accomplish are the things that light up our own hearts. Obviously, children, as they grow, they have more say and insight about the kinds of goals and outcomes that they want to produce for themselves. And as parents, we do share materials and an environment that can help cultivate, you know, a, a drive towards certain goals. I think it's really important to ask, why is their accomplishing this goal or outcome important to me? Is this about me or is this about them? And do they actually have an interest in that goal or outcome, or is it something you picked for them? An important question to ask yourself. The next question is, does my child have the tools and skills to do this? Sometimes we have a goal for our children, or our children have a goal, and we simply haven't provided access to tools. And they have like a couple of skills or 5 skills. It's like, well, they actually need to learn all of these other skills before they're going to be able to do this thing. So if they don't have access to tools and they're missing foundational skills, that's going to be an important question to ask yourself in knowing how to help them move along. The next question is the environment I'm providing supportive enough for their being able to reach this objective, right? What can I change in the environment that will support them in reaching their objective? That's really what this is about. And like I mentioned above, this next question is similar. Is there another way for them to obtain this same objective? There probably is. So if one approach is not working, can we switch it up so that everybody agrees? The next question is the way I'm going about this in harmony with my highest values and objectives? As a mother who taught my children to read, I'm in the process of teaching 2 more of my children to read, but I taught my 2 olders to read, and we're in the process with the next 2 down the line. I was very strict about making sure my children could read because it was very important to me. And, it was kind of a grumpy time. I eventually was able to get my kids to learn how to read, and they do love reading now. I'm really glad about that. Books are a big deal in our house, and I constantly am reading as well. But looking back on how I taught my children to read and what the situation was like there, I would totally do things differently now. And I am doing things differently with my next 2. There were so many tears and so much struggle, and I think really that came down to trying to do something that was not quite developmentally appropriate for my children. But if you have a goal for your children, or that they're interested in pursuing, you want to support them in that, I think the important thing to look at is this going to strengthen our relationship, or is this going to hurt our relationship with the way that I'm showing up here? And that's like foundational, right? Because we don't want to influence our children just because we want to produce an outcome. We don't want our children just to have skills. Like, we actually want to have a relationship with our children. And that's really at the heart of mentorship, is a loving relationship that's connected and supportive. And so looking at, and is the way I'm doing this in harmony with my highest values and objectives? Is this actually strengthening our relationship? That's an important question to ask yourself. And then the last couple of questions I have here are how is my child responding? Is this expanding their love of learning, or is it diminishing it? Be really honest with yourself about this question and look for ways to support them in the goal in ways that expand their love of learning. We don't want to be diminishing that love of learning. Obviously, as a homeschooling mom, a lot of these things are more pertinent to working with children in the home, but all of these same questions can be asked regardless of where your children are going to school, and or learning different things. But these questions are really important. Like, how responsive is the learning environment that you have your children in to their needs and to their will, to their desires, to their goals, and to yours, and the objectives you have as a family? I think it's really important to ask yourself those questions so that you can pick appropriate environments and mentors and environment and goals like with your child and that are supportive to your child. Your relationship with your child is the most important thing. It has everything to do with your ability to mentor them. If your child does not feel loved, your child does not want to hear your advice. When have we ever wanted to hear advice from someone who is like our arch enemy or is just constantly criticizing us? I think it's really important that we pay attention to the kind of language that we use with our children. There are many books that I've read about parenting, and I just am constantly reading anyways, but there was one book that I read several years ago. It was called The Art of Giving and Receiving Criticism by Dr. John Lund. It was a really good book. And when I read that book, there was a challenge that he offered in this book, which was to do 24 hours of no criticism whatsoever. And that was so difficult for me. It took me about a month to be able to do that with my kids at home, because even just the propensity to want to correct your kids about anything was included as criticism in this book. So you can see here, like my child with her fun little outfit that she's wearing. There's things that kids do like that, right? It's like, oh, that's different than I'm used to seeing. And so we tend to go into critical mode and try to fix it mode instead of being able to embrace who they are and where they're at. It's like, what's working here? Remember what worked, what can be improved, and what will I do next time? It's like, what's working? This little girl has figured out how to dress herself, and she's got some funky cool style, and she's really proud of the way that she's put things together. She's got a unique flair for life and likes to have fun with pattern, right? And she's right where she should be developmentally. She's doing so great. My little son here, this is a fun picture. I was in the other room and then I heard liquid dripping down off of the table in the kitchen, and I just got up and ran and took pictures with my phone. And my son had been pouring milk into a bowl because somebody left it out, and he did a really good job of filling that bowl up all the way and then some. And he set his little milk jug down. When he saw that I was looking at him, it was like deer in the headlights. We had a moment where he was like, what's going to happen here? And I looked at him and I was smiling. And so he decided things were still good. And he put this milk down and he got a little measuring spoon and scooped up some milk and drank it from his bowl, and then he took the cap to the milk jug and put it back on the jug and screwed it tight. um, he had done the thing that he wanted to do, which was to pour himself some milk. And it was really cute. Like there's the milk all over the place spilling off the table, and he's screwing the lid on so carefully. It was so sweet to be able to watch him in that moment and to be so excited about where he was developmentally and how he was really engaging that, and um, that he was practicing his independence. I could see all of those things and acknowledge all of those things. I haven't always been able to respond like that naturally, and I still have times where I'm working on overcoming that desire to criticize or to be upset about where my kids are at. But I've always found that acknowledgement first is the key. If your kids are doing something that you think is weird, you know, as long as it's not dangerous or something, get curious first. Um, Acknowledge their desires. Oh, what were you doing there? That's interesting. You know, um, something that you can do is you can, even if you need to correct your children, you can at least see what they're doing. Oh, you are wanting to color on the wall. Walls are not for coloring, but you know, you at least acknowledge them first. You may color on this paper. You're pretending not to hear me, you know, stuff that helps our children to know that we see them, that we notice them, we acknowledge them, and that we're aware of them. That first piece of like what is working, it's like, oh yeah, this child is acting as an independent being. That is working. This is good. Holding that perspective is so important for being able to have any influence down the line whatsoever. Love first, acknowledge first, before you ever try to shift anything that your children are doing. A really helpful way to support your children in loving learning and in going towards things that will be more enriching to their intellectual development and their development in all ways is to establish a really rich environment. And that means that you need to choose to limit some of the things that you allow in your home. There's a really great article called the Headgates article, and it talks about how there are head gates. You know, they have these in the area where I live. They have lots of fields where there are pastures with cows, and there's river that runs along and creeks that run along these pasture lands, and then there's these metal head gates, and when they drop the head gates, it forces the water out to irrigate the fields so that they can be covered with several inches of water to help the pasture land grow a little bit, and then they lift the head gates again and the water can then flow through down the line. But this is a metaphorical idea, right? There are head gates we can close in our own homes that help to push the energy in more beneficial directions. Some of the head gates that we have in our home is really limited screen time, especially, you know, just television. But even the things that we do watch on the screen, we tend to watch them together as a family for family entertainment, and we talk about it together. And we are picky about the kinds of things that we do watch. Other head gates that you can close. There's lots of head gates. Well, the kind of literature that you keep in your home, you know, there's different types of literature, and they are not all of the same quality. Some literature is kind of like a Twinkie. You know, we forget about that. Sometimes I think that people have a perception that if my child is reading books, then it's just good because it's just good for them to be reading books. But not all books are created equal. Some books are Twinkies. And so having a library that is full of high quality literature choices is a really great headgate. And if your kids don't have access to watching television, then they're going to want to read some books at some point. um, Other head gates that you can close. Um, you can have special rules about, you know, oh, well, these kinds of materials are only for this special situation, so that they are take a little more care with them. Or, you can have limits at, well, you can't learn how to play the piano until you are 8 years old, or 7 years old, or whatever the rules are in your house. You can make up all kinds of head gates, but you can see that some of those can be wise in getting them excited for the time that they get to do this new thing, but you can also just say, nope, we're not doing these things, therefore we're going to do other things. I'll show you some more of the things that we've done in our home, so you can have some more ideas. Something that we like to do in our home is to take interest in our children's passions as a family and support those as a family. You can see my son here. He has a passion for carnivorous plants like I've never seen. Like, the kids read multiple textbooks on carnivorous plants, written by mentors. I guess not textbooks so much as like guides to carnivorous plants by mentors. There's a little bit of a difference there. Um, but we love to go to the Oregon coast every summer as a family and go camping together for a week. And because my son had read this book about carnivorous plants, he learned that this type of pitcher plant, Darlingtonia, there was this natural site in Oregon where they naturally grew. And he's like, I read about this in my book. Can we go there? Next time we go to Oregon. So we made a special trip for my son to be able to all go see the pitcher plants together as a family. And I think, what a beautiful memory that we have as a family, and a great way to show him that we care about him and what matters to him by doing that together. So I think the more that you can help your children know that you care about what matters to them and prioritize those educational pursuits in your family endeavors, so everyone's participating, then that can be a really great way to have a family culture of learning according to what really lights up our hearts. Um, and like I mentioned in the beginning with the questions list, it's really important for you to have passions and interests that you're into. If you have cool things that you're doing, then your kids are going to want to learn those things too. We got goats, and I studied how to milk goats and how to process raw milk and stuff like that. We so you know I was the one milking the goat, but it wasn't long before the kids were all like, well, we want to learn how to milk the goat. So there were different levels of sufficiency. Like, I wouldn't want to necessarily drink the milk from every single child that learned how to milk the goat, if you know what I mean. Some of that milk was pretty dirty, but my kids learned how to milk the goat. It wasn't so much about doing stuff absolutely perfectly as it was that they were just excited about it and participating with us and helping with us. My daughter, Atlee, she wanted to learn how to play the flute. And so she worked really hard to save up to buy a Celtic flute. She's into kind of Celtic music, like harps and flutes and things like that. And while she was waiting to earn enough money to be able to buy her flute, she and my son decided to go try to build a flute. We'd watched some videos of people making these flutes with lathes and things like that, but they decided to try their hand at it with whittling and with drilling, and that was a project that they worked on one day together. And seeing them work together like that was just really heartwarming to me and fun. I have kept bees, and our son saw us keeping bees for several years, going out there, working with them and wearing our hoods and jackets and everything. And he was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So one year for Christmas, he got a bee suit for his Christmas gift. And so he likes to go do the beekeeping with us now. But that's an example of how, what is the stuff that you're working on? What are the things that your kids are interested in? And if you've got an environment, with my son doing this woodworking with his sister, like they'd often done woodworking with their dad in the shop, and he taught them how to use drills and hammers and screws and nails and things like that. So because they had had experiences learning to do things in a hands-on way, they felt more confident to do that. I have a lot of pictures here. I think something that is really important is that you let your children contribute meaningfully in your home. Teach them how to properly use the tools that are available so that they can be successful. Um, Teach them how to use knives. We have a little picture up here of some biscuits and gravy. That was a breakfast that our kids decided to make one morning. They made this little menu, for the Hepworth family breakfast, and they brought out a little fruit salad. It was so cute, but like they knew how to follow the recipe and actually make good food. It was really fun and really nice. You can see my son was getting creative using an ice cream scoop as a melon baller. You can see this funny little picture of this chicken. They were getting creative with um, their egg cooking. My little boy up at the top, he's using a broom there. He's like, yeah, I want to be able to participate too. If everyone's doing the thing, I want to do the thing. Kids love to play with tools. They love to do those things. And you can see my daughter down here in the middle. On the bottom, she has eggs hidden behind her knees and behind her back there, and in her hands she has so many eggs. We did get her a basket so she could collect eggs a little bit easier from her chickens, but I think it's really sweet to help give your children opportunities to participate in a way that feels meaningful and actually is a contribution to the home. You can see my son cutting up potatoes there, and my daughter here on the bottom is writing out the recipe, because he was actually making up a recipe in that case, um, with some variations on an idea that they'd gotten in this, I think it's the Nourishing Traditions cookbook for children. That's pretty great. But she was doing some writing and supporting him in his cooking, and that was a really fun moment. My daughter up at the top eating the broccoli. If you want your kids to eat broccoli, right, if you want them to partake of good ideas and excitement for life, then that is something that you can do. Our kids eat vegetables really well, and I think that's because we eat vegetables, but this is a principle, that kind of, it's the you not them thing showing up again. I think a great way to help inspire our children is to spend time in nature as a family and observing it. I mean, it's amazing. You can just look down in a tiny little square on a dirt patch and find amazing things. Um, this ladybug was in our yard, and he saw that it was eating aphids on a plant. And so my son was fascinated by it, caught it, and then shortly after, and he also saw ladybugs mating and stuff like that. He put this ladybug in the jar, and we saw the ladybug lay the eggs like in front of us. It was so, so cool. And that was just in our front yard. How amazing. And this fascinating spider, I want to say it's an orb weaver. Hope I got it right, or remembered that correctly. And then my son, he has an ant farm, and he collected that colony that was inside of a log, a wood burning log. And so he collected the colony, and it turned out there was a queen in there, because these are all little baby ant eggs up in there. We've got a lot of insects going on over at our house, and you can see my son's boot here looking at some pond water. He loves to look at the little microscopic creatures in the pond and look at them under the microscope. But it's amazing how, it doesn't take much time in nature, but it does just take, some rest period to be able to be soaking in it. to be inspired by the fascinating things that are going on there. So I think the more that you can get out, do some hikes with your family, spend time outside, this is a great way to reach our children's hearts. I think a really important part of having a home culture where people love to learn and that they're open to mentorship is that there is space. Um, there's a really good book. What is it called? Gifts from the Sea by Anne Lindbergh. And in that book, she talks about this idea of space being what allows things to be beautiful, right? If you have one piece of if you have a whole pile of driftwood, you can't really appreciate it in the same way as if you have one piece that's, portrayed, just set up in a very, stylized way. Or if you have one shell and you're really caring about this shell. Beauty is really found in the space that we create for ourselves. And it's really easy to overschedule our lives and to cram all the things in and to meet everybody else's expectations and just to go, 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 go. Without space, it's hard to be able to be in tune with yourself and your children enough to be able to be responsive to the things that could cultivate more of a love of learning, that could cultivate a better relationship with each other. I love downtime because it's an opportunity for my children to do handicrafts and to do things with their hands and to be more artistic. My daughter here loves to draw birds, and her latest thing that she's been into has been doing bead loom work. And she put her signature bird in a bead loom bracelet that she was making. It's so cute and so fun to me that she was able to do that. I didn't know how to bead loom, but she figured that out because she was excited about that. And we have enough downtime for her to be able to explore things like that. So uh, never underestimate the value of some spaciousness in your schedule. Um, I think what's really helpful also is to join some sort of community where learning is fun. Then learning can be something that is inspired and it's not done by compulsion. So you can see my children over here on the left in their clothing. That was our educational commonwealth had a Shakespeare fair, and all of the children who read, watched, or listened to 17 Shakespeare plays were able to earn crowns for themselves. Now, there were older kids who were able to get, the full-size crowns, but they also opened up the opportunity to the younger children. They could do abridged versions of the Shakespeare plays. They could read, watch, or listen to 17 abridged versions. And so my two olders over here have crowns because they did that. And I did not harass them to read Shakespeare. I didn't say Shakespeare is, the most important writer of the English language or anything like that. I didn't have to guilt them into it or make it stressful in any way. They were totally motivated to do it because we're part of a community where that is cool and that is fun. And my kids are super excited about earning their big crowns and being able to read, watch, and listen to 17 full-length Shakespeare plays. Why? Because of the community that we're a part of. So join some sort of community or start some kind of community where learning is fun and inspiring, and you'll find that your children will go towards wonderful things. Like I mentioned before about the Headgate idea surrounding the literature in your home, that some literature is better than other literature. Really maintaining that the kinds of things that you choose for your home library is so important. And in a future video, I will talk about book recommendations that I have and how to be able to choose some of that quality literature. But you can see here, my husband, this is a picture of him reading to our kids out loud. That was when we were reading, was that The Hobbit? What else have we read? We've read so many good things together. Right now we're reading Little Men by Louisa May Alcott. But we're always reading something out loud with our children, something that's enriching to their hearts and to their souls. This is inspiring. I think it's important too to have some sort of a core book that you go to again and again. Um, for my family, that includes the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the Pearl of Great Price. We have scriptures that are like our canon, and we read those with our children every single day. So I think whatever is a core book for your family and that you read from regularly will be very beneficial to creating a culture within your home of learning about the things that you think are important. And the more fun you can make it, the better. If you have little kids and you're reading, you can invite them to draw pictures while they're listening, or you can invite them to act out what you're sharing with them. They don't have to always be still to listen. Um, find out how you can make learning fun within your home and in the community culture, and you'll be able to engage your children a lot better. So I think a really great way to support your children and to have them want to receive any mentorship or support from you is to facilitate project-based opportunities for them to be able to share whatever it is that they're working on they're really excited about. And so that whatever they're excited about becomes relevant not only to themselves but other people, and becomes a benefit to the communities in which they're participating. Our educational commonwealth had a camp out that we did, and part of that unit, we were kind of doing survival homesteading unit. And my son is really passionate about survival kind of stuff. He really likes Bear Grylls and reads his stuff. Anyways, we asked him to do a presentation on foods that you could eat in the wild. And so he came up with this poster all on his own, and he did, edibles in the center, and then on the outside he has deadables, which I thought was just the cutest thing. I think that's Bear Grylls language, but he drew the pictures all by himself, and it was so great to hear him give this presentation. All of the kids and the adults who were listening were like hanging on his every word, and he knew a lot of details about, the way to cook up ants and and this is going to be something you want to look out for. You're going to eat this part, but not this part. Like, he knew all of the details, and it was just because he was excited about it. And I think he really felt proud of being able to have his interest be something that other people were interested in and that he got to share. And I think everybody there felt grateful that he was into something and he was willing to share it with us, because we learned a lot of things. And so that was one project that one of my children was able to have be more meaningful for them. And then you can see over here, my daughter's playing the organ. She knows how to play the organ. She plays piano and organ, but she decided to learn how to play a song and perform it at church as um, a special musical number. And she was so proud and so happy to be able to be there at church. And she had her foot pedals going and just was beaming. And I think the more that we can have our children show up and participate as, truly contributing members in the communities that we're participating in, they're going to have like actually relevant drive for doing what they're doing and doing it well. This is another Thomas Jefferson education key of great learning, is to structure time, but not content. And I referred to this a little bit earlier about how if your kid's not digging one kind of math, you can switch it out. What is the goal that you have for your child? And can it look a little bit differently? Can you talk about, this time is dedicated to like physical exercise or nature exploration or reading or or whatever it is that you want to do. Or you can say, this is just the time for academic work, and we're going to let this be open. That can be really helpful in helping them to feel more flexible and be able to get in a flow. Also, it's really great to have your children teach each other what they have learned. That creates a culture of learning and a culture of sharing. And also, there's a sense in which children who are teaching others have an opportunity to feel important and to share and learn things better as they are teaching back what they know. That's a really great way to have them participate in the mentoring process. Um, I mentioned before about having your children connect academic work they do to their own personal goals. My son wanted to start his own business. He found a way to capture pond water and keep them in these little jars with an ecosystem of multiple creatures, and some eat each other and some will clean up the dead bodies on the bottom. It's great. Anyways, we did some work together doing graphic design. He drew a picture, and then we worked together to design stickers and a brochure for his own business. And that was science, that was math, that was all kinds of reading and research that he did to be able to put that together. And so the more that things can be project-based or relevant to what is interesting to them, the more success you're going to have. Also, you can see down here, my kids have little Home Depot kits. We like to do on the first Saturday of every month. Home Depot has kits for kids that you can go pick up, their little monthly crafts. And we take those home and go do those together. They used to do them at the Home Depot in the community, but they don't do that anymore with the way that the world's changed a little bit. So we bring those home, but if you want to have kids who can follow instructions, then give them a relevant reason to follow instructions. If they don't follow the instructions well, then their project is not going to be as good, or they'll have to redo things. I think that's good for them. Stuff like that can be really helpful. In order to help your family be able to really have a drive towards something bigger, it's important to take some time to clarify, what is your family vision? What are the highest objectives that you have for your family and for each one of your children? By the time that they're leaving home, what do you hope most that your children know? What are they capable of doing? And what kind of people are they being? Right? Look at that big picture, because when we focus too much on the what's, right, the application of things, we can kind of get lost in the weeds, but we'll be able to stay grounded if we can look at our big whys. Simon Sinek has a great YouTube presentation on the golden circle. And he talks about that idea that, in businesses that are very successful, they have a why that's inspiring to every participant in that business. And it's a message that speaks to other people who want to engage with that too. And I think that's the same within our families. Like, what is your why? When you can't, when you're like, well, why do you do that? That thing in your family, how come? How come? When you can't say how come anymore, you have gotten to a why. It's like, yeah, well, that's the thing that matters to me. It's like, oh, okay. Do we talk about this? Do we express this together as a family? Do we know what's important to us and what our biggest goals are? That's an important question to be asking yourself. Nicolene Peck has a great book called Parenting a House United, and she talks about making a family vision for your family so that you can talk about and look forward to a future time together, like 20 years down the road or something. You can pick a date or a location. For our family, we use Nicolene's example, and we have imagined a Thanksgiving dinner 20 years down the road. And we can imagine our children older. Some of them have babies, so the cousins or grandbabies are playing together. We can see all of the homemade dishes there. It smells good. It's beautiful. Anyways, there's a beautiful spread, and we love to talk to each other about interesting things, share all the projects that we're working on. The the sentiment, is that we still love each other and we love to serve God, that we're praying over this meal together. We love to be together, and we're sad when the evening's over that we don't want to leave. And we've created a vision like that where we've written it out, and we talk about it sometimes as something that we refer to as we're moving forward, in like everything that we do. We're like, does this help us to fulfill our family vision, or does this make it harder for us to fulfill our family vision? Have something like that to hold on to as a family, and then help your children to start creating visions for their own lives about what matters to them, what they're excited about, and so that you can support them in that, like understand what their visions are for what they want to create, and then make that a touch point where you can say, what you is this going to help you support your vision coming to fruition, or is it going to make it harder for that to come to fruition? What do you think? Have an active dialogue going on about your whys and about what it is that you're wanting to achieve. And a lot of what we want to achieve really has to do with a feeling of being home, of being loved, of fulfilling our potential, and the contribution that we want to make to the world. So one way to be able to keep track of what's going on with your kids, and in creating that family vision and sustaining that and making it a regular kind of conversation piece, is to have regular mentor meetings with your children. And not only mentor meetings with your children, but also with your spouse. And so my husband and I like to have couples meetings where we sit down and we discuss each one of our children's development and areas that they need to improve, and we'll make a plan for how to help address the concerns that we have. But we also acknowledge, like I mentioned in the beginning, what's working. We have a binder where we actually take notes on an agenda, and we write about each child. It's kind of a fun family journal to see what we put down there, but we do always acknowledge stuff that is working first, and then we talk about what can be improved, and then we talk about what it is we're going to do as a couple in order to support that child. We also, do some planning in that meeting for the week, like look at dates and times of things and what projects are we working on, stuff like that. But talking about your children with your spouse is a great way to be unified in your approach to your children. And then after my husband and I have our couples meetings, we like to have our children come in for individual mentor meetings. So each child gets to have their binder. They get to write out. For the younger children, we draw a little box, and they can draw a picture inside of it if they like to do that. And they share something that they're excited about. We check in with their personal goals in the different areas of their lives. They have goals that are educational and spiritual and physical, and their social goals as well. We always ask them, how are the relationships that you have with the other members of the family going? And we make a strategy for any concerns that they have. We ask them, what's important to you, and how can we support you in being able to achieve what you want? It's a really great time to be able to just be with our children, to let them know that we love them. We start and end these meetings with a prayer, and we do record them in a binder in more of a formal format. And if they have any concerns, we give them ideas. We troubleshoot together to make a plan for how their concerns can be addressed. It's a beautiful thing. Our children love it. And I also want to talk about the evolution of these meetings because our oldest is 11, and so things are shifting. So our youngest is 2, our oldest is 11, and these are just pictures actually from this last week's mentor meetings. You see my little 2-year-old, this was his first official meeting, and he basically just colored all over the paper, and we just talked to him, and he shared some words, and we gave him a hug and told him we loved him, and it was really short. And uh, I wrote down on the paper some of the words that he said. He did not color in the box. It was a little wild. That's how these mentor meetings start out, but he felt loved and it was sweet and fun. Now you can see my 11-year-old. Don't you wish this presentation was like 10 years down the line so I could tell you all the stories that we're going to have as we continue to learn how to mentor teenagers that are older. This meeting was the first time our son did not want to come. He would not. So we were teasing him. We're like, come here, you're gonna come over here and sit with us. We took a selfie joking with him. He was playful, but like he really was not having it. He would not do it. And so we made an agreement. My husband, he set up sort of like flag football, but it's like sock wrestling. These guys had a sock in the back of their shorts each that were kind of hanging out, and they had a little wrestling match, and whoever could take the sock out could decide if we did the meeting or if we didn't do the meeting. And our son won, and so he didn't do the meeting. He did come and talk to us later though, and we've had some more low-key time of connecting, and I can just see how things are going to need to be flexible in a different way going forward. And I'm excited for the new challenges that we're facing. But these are all the things that I know have worked with my son and with all children. And I have experience working with teens too. But as children get older and they are more resistant to what it is that you're doing, I think it's really important that you don't offer them advice unless they actually asked for it. If you're giving them advice and they didn't ask for it, I mean, that's a turnoff for everybody pretty much. But that's a really big thing to look at, because as they're coming into their own and being able to make their own decisions and feel confident about what it is that they're doing, it's sort of disrespectful to our vote of confidence in them to say, hey, you really need this advice, right? So don't offer advice to them unless they're asking for it. Hold an image of confidence within your mind about your child's capability. They really can figure things out. They're really going to be okay. And you can be flexible with what your meetings look like. They don't have to be formal anymore. You can visit their world instead of insisting that they stay with yours. As my children are getting older, and I've always tried to be good about this, but I'm going to be extra vigilant about this, is that when my son invites me to go look at something interesting in his ant farm, or if he wants to show me something that he read in his book, or if he says, hey, look at this thing outside, I am going to go and do that thing. Or if he says, hey, I really want to play a board game. Yes, okay, we're going to do that. And I think that those kinds of opportunities where your children start getting older, they're the ones that are taking the lead a little bit more. And the process of mentoring is more about just an expression of love for them and just spending time being with them. Take their cues for when they are ready to talk instead of saying, this is the formal meeting and you will join us in this meeting. I think it's really important to continue to show your children you care by listening to them and expressing interest in what matters to them, even if it's not the thing that you're into. The fact that they're into it and they want to share it with you, it's like they're sharing a little piece of their heart with you. Be interested in it. Speak their love language, know what their love language is, and still give them hugs if hugs are their thing, or words of affirmation. What is it or quality time, acts of service, or gifts? What is their love language? Speak that to them so that they can feel loved. I think as children get older too, it's helpful to engage mentors that you trust to help your children in their learning, of whatever areas of interest to them, so that they still have some positive role models, but they can feel like they can spread their wings and get away from home a little bit, but still have positive role models, and choose those mentors really carefully. Pray for your children, pray with them, seek guidance from God. God is the ultimate source that we can go to for insight about everything that we do. And as we realize that God loves our children to a greater degree than even we can, that he will provide answers and insight that is going to help us in being able to reach their hearts, to really just know that they're loved. Do you have any questions for me? Any comments about this presentation? Any insights you would love to share that you have that I didn't cover in this presentation about how to be able to be mentors that reach our children's hearts when they just don't want to? I'd love to hear your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. If you like this video, please like it and please subscribe so that you can see more content that is similar to this kind of content on my channel. And I appreciate your time, and I wish you wonderful, fabulous success in connecting with your children as a mentor who can really reach their hearts. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.